Hi, it's Kasia speaking, and it's your favorite English podcast about languages. And today we are going to have a closer look at different languages and their peculiarities, weirdness, unique and maybe outrageous features to some extent. And I said we because I have a pleasure to host a special guest today, my brilliant former student and a person who I believe is quite into languages, Mikołaj Adamczyk.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure, my pleasure. So Mikołaj, you're of course a native speaker of Polish, and you're a proficient user.
A proficient user of English, yeah.
Of course. And
I also know just like a tiny little bit of French and some Swedish, but not a lot. So I'll be able to speak a little about them.
Perfect. So from the user's point of view, we are going to discuss it from the point of view of Polish native speakers, yeah, and our Polish brains. Yeah. Maybe we will try to stay as objective as possible.
We'll try probably, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll try. We will see. Okay, so let's start. And which one would you like to start with? What do you feel like discussing first?
I think we should probably start with English.
Okay.
Since, we're already using it.
I'm not sure if I will be able to stay, so objective because I'm always joking. I'm looking at the language like through the rose-colored glasses, but I will be able to tell more from the teacher's point of view because I know the things that my students usually struggle with. But I will leave it to you. Please tell me, what do you find weird and peculiar or difficult?
I don't think that my opinion will be very different from yours because I picked up English really easily and honestly nothing really seemed like a big challenge to me in terms of learning it. But what I found difficult at first was just the amount of the grammatical tenses, so many ways in which you can say what you were doing in the past and what will you be doing in the future. And at first that I found that odd and had to really sit down and think about it. But then after some practice, I picked it up as just any other grammatical...
a point, for example, a grammar point.
Grammar point, yeah.
Yeah, so practice. Yeah, practice is the key. Practice is the key. But with the past tenses, how can we, Polish native speakers, conceive the idea of past in the past? This is this is a bit weird, but I'm not a specialist in that field. I just read it somewhere probably that in the old Polish we had the past perfect aspect, something like that. When you have conditionals in English and you have to use the past perfect in the third conditional. We had something like that, but we just got rid of it, and we should be thankful to...
Yeah, thank you for our language for evolving.
Yeah. So conditionals.
I think that's the second hardest thing for me was to learn the conditionals, especially the mixed ones. It was a hell learning all of them, but then I worked out a pattern for them, and now... they're no challenge for me.
So what was more challenging? Using the grammar structure, remember the grammar structure, or memorizing the idea of the mixed ones? If something happened in the past and now it has the influence on the present events, but still imaginary ones?
I'd say definitely the idea, there was a lot of theory involved, which you had to just memorize. But after learning about it for a shorter bit, you could pretty easily memorize all of it because all of those rules were pretty logical. So there was no biggie with learning them.
Thank you for saying that it's logical because it is. Yeah, I mean, It is. This is what I'm trying to persuade my students to look at it this way. So anyway, so about English and being logical and the conditionals being logical, of course they are. And when we discuss the Arabic language later in that podcast, you will see there is no logic in there. But people who use the Arabic language, and I remember my academic teachers, they were so sure that this is like super logical. And I'm like, please. So, thank you for saying that here. Okay, so we have conditionals, and I know, yes, students hate it, but they are quite useful, aren't they?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I find myself using them at least 3 times when I'm like writing anything, for example, like an essay, because they are really useful.
So what else would you find weird or challenging? Something unusual maybe in English?
The one thing that I noticed, but not like by myself, but after reading Babel and Gatka, that English pronunciation is often illogical.
It is.
Because so many times a word that has like the same few letters beside themselves is like pronounced differently, which is so hard for someone who's learning the language, because obviously you have to memorize all of the different ways you have to pronounce just few letters. It can be frustrating, but after a while you probably get a hang of it.
And the perfect way is when you learn the word to check the pronunciation, because as you said, you can have the same combination of letters and still it can give you nothing. It's very unpredictable. But when you can pronounce it very well, then it's just like a melody, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say about spelling?
For me, spelling, I mean, I'm a terrible speller in any languages, including Polish. So for me, it was also like kind of hard at first, but then I found myself using this like my own method. When there was a word that I didn't know how it was spelled, I just wrote all the possible spellings like on the back of the paper. And then I took a look at them and just picked the one that looked the most normal and the most right. And in most cases it worked. So I think that's a vital option for those of you who also have problems with spelling.
And this is one of the best ways. I mean, I remember I did the same, and with the Polish orthography, I remember I just did, sometimes when I was in doubt, I just put like the 2 ways or 3 ways that I can spell it, and then I just look at it, and it was like, okay, this one looks the best. So yeah, sometimes you don't have to swat the rules, but still, I have some words, mostly in English, when I look at them, and like I question their existence and their spelling. Like, for example, I know the word vulnerable. Every time I must spell it, I look at it and I'm like, no, there's something wrong with it. It cannot be spelled this way. And then I check it and it's okay. So I don't know if it's just like some parts of your brain, they just will never get it, or...
I mean, I think it's better to check the word like twice in a dictionary how it's spelled, because honestly, it's time for like a small confession, but for like almost my whole life till a year back, I spelled business like in the way that you hear it. So, different from how it's written. And then when I learned that it's spelled differently, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It's impossible. I've been like making one mistake my whole life. And that is why you probably always should check the spelling.
But this is kind of like also a weird feeling that you have when you, after some years, you realize, oh, okay, it's spelled this way.
Yeah, like someone has changed your entire world. Yeah,
If there's time to for some confessions, it was like few weeks ago, and I think I was like preparing the notes for this podcast, and I thought about the languages that we can discuss it here, and then I thought about Belarusian language. If you have the Polish word for this, you can see the ending, the Russian ending, because it's also in Polish this way, and I don't know. And at that time, I didn't know why hadn't I realized it earlier, that there is this Russian part in this language. And it was like, I had the sound of the glass breaking in my mind. I don't know, sometimes probably you just look at the word and you don't pay attention to it. And then I was like, okay, so there was the Russian part in Belarusian. I was like, such a shame. And realizing it before my 30s, okay, that's a good score. Yeah. Better late than never, yeah? Another thing that my students love, phrasal verbs.
So here's another, let's say, illogical part of English, because so often for us, they don't make any sense. Because obviously our brain go for literal translation. And then we're like, okay, what can this mean? It's just so weird for us. But then after trying to memorize them a bit, using flashcards, that worked for me, you can get a hang of it.
Yeah, and using them in the correct context. But what is also challenging is that one phrasal verb can have few different meanings and totally different. They don't even stand so close to each other in the meaning, and you can make a horrible, terrible mistake if you use it in the wrong context. But what I think our Polish brains don't realize, because we usually don't think when you use the language. We have something like that in Polish too. Yeah, but we have, we put the prefix, and it also can have few meanings. Yeah, when you think about it right now. Also, what is challenging, sometimes you can have this idea, you can imagine it with a very simple phrasal verb like get up. So that's the movement, yeah? But you can come up with the idea, yeah? Come up with why. And come up is something different, totally different, yeah? Or makeup, you put makeup on and you can make up with somebody, for example, yeah? So you stop fighting, and how come? So objectively, when we look at English, what would you say? Is it so hard? Is such a weird language?
I think it's obviously not the easiest language, but thanks to it being so widespread and being the lingua franca of our modern times, I think it's easier to learn it thanks to the amount of many different materials that you may use for learning it. So it's I'd say on an intermediate level of hardness in terms of languages.
And if you want to be communicative, it's not so hard. It's not just hard nut to crack, yeah? If you just want to communicate around the world. And yeah, you mentioned the materials. It is so easy to surround yourself with it. It's you must be very lazy if you don't want it, which is quite hard when you want to learn some exotic languages. Yeah, even Polish, I would say. Before we get to the next one, you mentioned the book. I forgot to mention it, yeah? Okay. So yeah, we both got inspired by the book Babel, Around the World in 20 Languages, and Lingo, A Language Spotter's Guide to Europe by Gaston Dorren. So if you are into languages, I can say we both highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I think the day you brought the book to the class...
Yeah.
I think at that time, I just got the idea, you might be into languages. So, very tiny things. Had you not brought the book to the class, then maybe I wouldn't have realized that you might be interested in the language, and maybe you wouldn't be speaking right now and doing this. But also, so small confessions. I remember when you brought the book, and I saw you, and I was like, okay, he's got the book. I mean, this is a good book. Good, Mikołaj, good. And then you told me you have it because you heard about it.
Yeah, in the podcast, yeah, I heard about it. And I was like, maybe it's worth trying out. And it definitely was.
I felt like a real influencer at the time. I was like, he's listening to the podcast, yeah? And also, and he brought he started reading the book that he heard about in the podcast. And I'm an influencer. I mean, even it's one person, Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you got inspired. And I don't know if I kept poker face, but inside I was super excited, So this is it with the English?
Yeah, I think that's it.
So what you think about discussing French now?
Okay.
Because we mentioned the unpredictable pronunciation, and I think French is the master of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I said that the English pronunciation is sometimes illogical, the French pronunciation has like no logic at all involved in it. It's just so random, and you have so many different ways of pronouncing different letters. And what's even worse, that I don't really remember that well, because I gave up learning French like a few months ago. But when there are some letters that are in close proximity to each other in a sentence, they change each other's like sound, and it was like so.
Sorry for interrupting you, but they are in different words. Like,
I mean, I might be wrong, but I think that's like the hardest part about learning the French, because the pronunciation is just terrible. I remember that at some point I just gave up and read all of the words just as they were written. And
Polish one.
Yeah, and my teacher was like, no, you read it that way. And I was like, okay, give me like 2 years and maybe I'll read it to you that way. But before that, no way. It's so hard.
You've been learning in high school, yeah?
Yeah, in high school.
Can you approach it in some special way to make it easier? Or you have the feeling that you learn it the same way as other languages? Just, reading and listening to some music, or let's say watch series to get...
I wouldn't recommend listening, because French people speak so fast. When I was in Paris and I wanted to like try and order a coffee in French, as soon as the waitress came to me and asked me like a single question, which took like forever, I was like, parlez-vous français? Which is like, do you speak English? Because there's no way I'm going to try to embarrass myself by using French. And what's also really funny is that I've heard that the French people almost despise English, but I've learned that it's just like a myth and not true. And in most places in like Paris, if you start speaking English, they will also serve you in English. So that's really handy to know.
I ask my French students, because I like to have some French students in my classroom, because I was also curious about this. Most of them had the same idea, like if we are in our 40s or 50s, we went through the system of education that is similar to the Polish one. So actually you don't have great opportunity to use it, and you just learn the language from the course book, and you must score 100% of points, which is, that's the topic for like another podcast. But then we can see that when you go abroad, you're not able to order a cup of coffee. Usually they say it is this way, and they feel embarrassed, or they don't feel so secure, they feel intimidated. And then I thought about Polish people, let's say the 40s, 50s or older, when they want to either come back to learning or start learning English, they are scared. They are scared to use it, because either they have some like inferiority complexes, for example, or they went through the system of education that we have. So this is one thing that they told me. And another one is that younger generation is different. So something that fits what you just said, it's just a myth that French people are like, no, you're in France, use French, yeah? It's not this way. And with the pronunciation, they've been also telling me that when they try to teach their kids, so they read the books, some fairy tales in French, their kids are asking them, why is it this way, mommy? Or, because, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it just shows that even if a French baby says it's illogical, it is illogical.
Yeah. So we're on the same page here. Yeah. So when I have the classes, I'm trying to, because I have to help my students, and then I look up the French words in the dictionary, and I'm trying to read it out, and I'm just making a fool of myself, because you cannot guess. You just, Another thing, I don't know, I was like maybe 25 when I learned that the French sound, the sound that I always thought is like r sound, it's more like h.
Yeah, it's like comes from like the bottom of your throat, and it's like, I compared it to like choking on a croissant.
Croissant?
So
Croissant.
Croissant.
Okay. So it's not like
No, it's like croissant.
croissant. Okay, so it's too deep in my throat.
Yeah, a bit, because in different words you use that deep R, but I'm not sure in which ones, because obviously I forgot, and I just used the normal one because it's so hard for me to use it from down there.
The Arabic has it, maybe that's why it's easy for me. I went too Arabic right now. So this is like a very deep and glottal h sound. Yeah. It's not like r.
No,
they don't have something like r. Anything else would you like to tell us
about the French
tenses? What would you say? Is it similar as in English? Because they are quite similar anyway, and it's so easy for French people to learn English and the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't learned all of them yet, so I'm not sure whether I'll be able to say as much about the grammar. But from what I noticed, the French grammar has a lot of logical patterns, and that what makes it easy to understand. But what makes the whole task of learning the French grammar harder is just the amount of different topics in French grammar that you need to know, because that one really threw me off from learning French. And there's just a lot of it. But at the same time, it's logical, so it's you probably will learn the French grammar quicker before learning the pronunciation.
Why not? Yeah, you know all of the rules. Yeah, you know how to speak correctly, but you don't know how to actually speak. Yeah, and how to pronounce it. But would you say, because also there is a kind of a saying, if French people want to learn English, it's enough when they read the French in the English with the English accent, and the other way around. This is what I heard, because they are so similar. Even the French people are joking that, we can have a look at the French word and we will try to introduce the English pronunciation, and voila, we speak English.
Well, I would agree in terms of writing, because I often, when I had some French texts in my classes, I would just read through them and be like, wait, this is an English word. Can I just read it as it is pronounced in English? And my teacher was, no, you read it in this way.
But you spell it the same way.
Yeah, you spell it the same way. And it happens quite often, actually. So I think I see where this saying is coming from. But I'm not sure whether this is so widespread in French that it will help somebody to learn the other way, but it's still useful, I guess.
When you want to learn French, or let's say Spanish, or English or Italian, these are the Romanic languages. It's easier. When you are a native speaker of some Slovak languages, it's harder.
Definitely.
So you're 100% giving up French.
I mean, I obviously still will have to learn it in school, because I've still got 2 years left of it, and maybe it'll grow on me, but I'm feeling pretty skeptic about it. So we'll see how things turn out. Maybe I will find my love for French once again, but it's actually funny because I had a phase when I was oh gosh, I love French language, French culture, French history and stuff. And then after 2 months, I was guys, I was just kidding. I like French food. That's all.
But still, I mean, a bit of passion maybe might help, yeah? And I mean, food, come on.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll just eat a croissant and then it all comes back.
It's so funny for me to hear it. I don't know why. I mean, yeah, croissant. Croissant. Okay. Did I nail it?
Yeah.
I nailed it. Croissant. All right. So, before we get hungry, we must discuss the remaining ones. So, Spanish or German? What do you feel like?
German brings back very bad memories, so maybe let's go with Spanish.
Well, we have to discuss it anyway. There is no escape yet.
But we can prolong it a bit.
Okay. Yeah, why not? So, Spanish. I can tell you a bit about the Spanish thing that I find quite weird. Different And I find a lot of similarities between English and Spanish. Like probably you can find them between French and English as well. But I had like, there were two situations where like, Spanish, please don't do it to me. I couldn't find the connection. I was like, why? Why you have it this way? And of course, I try to approach the language with an open mind. And just, you have to take what the language gives you. But sometimes you're like, why? So with this why, the first thing is the structure used to in English. Okay, for some speakers, users, learners of English, it may be weird that they have like a separate structure to talk about past habits, which is, but it's quite common and useful. So, but in Spanish, there is a tense that is similar, more similar to past continuous, and this used to concept, you can use this past continuous to talk about it. And that was like, it's quite hard for me for now to get, because my mind is used to using past simple for that. And I kind of like, where's the logic? Like, okay, but past continuous is about some background, yeah? Or you just focus on some period from some past events and not their habits. So this is something, it's not hard. It's not the worst thing. And when you learn hard languages, some exotic languages, for example, some Asian languages, and then you come back, your European mind come back to the European languages, okay, you can make peace with it, I would say.
Yeah, like, I was actually wondering, because I've had some friends that used to learn Spanish, and they were like, okay, Spanish is so easy. I wanted to ask you whether that's true, or whether you have different opinions.
This would be an objective comment, and comment of Polish native speaker who also went through 3 years of Arabic, so I'm not sure if it's like quite objective, because when you study very hard language and then you come back to the, let's say, European one, it seems easy. But anyway, I think the basics are easy. I mean, I'm still like, I would say I'm like A2 level. I like grammar, and I know I am able to do some grammar tasks at, let's say, B1 level, but I still need more vocab, and I still need more the speaking practice. So from what I learned, let's say this A2 level, I would say Spanish is not that hard. And if you are a user of English or French or Italian, it will be easy for you to get it. And what is also very important for me is the melody of the language, the sound of the language. I like it. And that's not as much as I like English, of course, And the pronunciation is not that unpredictable, because you have some rules, you have some sounds. But for example, for Polish people, it's okay to pronounce, let's say, mañana. This is ni. It's like our Polish ni, which like English speakers may find difficult, but we will not. On the other hand, they have this th, as like this th sound. If you're a user of English, then you will master the sounds. So in terms of pronunciation, it's okay. In terms of the basic vocabulary, I would say that the elementary stuff, I think you can get it. If you have a command of the languages, like some of the European languages, it's okay. But English speakers may find difficult the conjugation and inflection of verbs, because it's like in Polish, you have to change the ending to each person. And in each tense, you have to add a different ending. So for us, it's quite okay. Yeah, you can go through it. But if you speak a language that doesn't have it, and then, when I look at languages like that, and then I see people complaining about this S ending, I'm like, it's just a simple S, and it's just the third person, So answering your question, I guess your friends were right, like we're on the same page. It is quite easy, but I don't know what happens when you get to the higher levels, which is, of course, I think with other languages as well, like that. I know one of my friends, she's a user of Italian, and then she started learning Spanish. And for example, she started learning Spanish conditionals when she had the feeling that she was at C1 level. So maybe it's, the grammar is quite hard. But what I want to say about the other thing about grammar that I came across, and I'm like, I don't know if this is my level yet or not yet. But because my brain is like crazy when you have to use the objective pronoun in Spanish, you put it in front of the verb. And you can get used to it. So, for example, you say, no lo sé. So, I don't know. Yeah, no lo sé. So, no is a negative, lo, it, sé is self, no, the first person. And in Polish, we can do it this way or the other way. So we can put the pronoun in front of it, in front of the verb, and behind it. So it's okay for a Polish brain to just put it in the correct place. I realize the more I learn, the more I listen, it just comes automatically. So this thing about these objective pronouns are like somehow easy for me to grasp, and like my brain can conceive it. But there are some verbs and like group of verbs that also are connected with the like preferences, or also, for example, preocupar, yeah? English pronunciation comes. Preocupar means to worry, or molestar means to disturb. So not only connected with the preferences, but anyway, the thing is that when you want to say, for example, why you don't like me, this verb like is not connected with you, where it should be. We have this feeling that it should be like that, and we have it the same way in Polish, but in some verbs, the rule is that this verb like would be conjugated, if I can say it this way, by the first person, so me, so the object. Or do you like my siblings? So I have this idea of using the verb like conjugated by you. No, in this sentence is like by siblings. And I'm not sure if you got it, because I'm still not getting it. Probably I have to study more and use it more, and I hope it will one day come naturally to me, because these sentences are like quite basic.
Yeah, it sounds like so.
I know me gusta. Me gusta is okay. For now, I can survive with me gusta.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Anything else you heard about Spanish? You have some questions?
Not really. I mean, the only thing that I've heard is that the native speaker speaks so fast, just like the French. I think this is like another reason why learning a language from listening to some podcasts in it or watching TV series without the subtitles is not really the best idea.
From the basic? No, I totally agree with you. No, you must have some basics.
Yeah, like coming back to French a bit, I remember when we had some listening exercises, and my teacher knew that listening exercises in French are very hard. And instead of asking, did you get all the answers? She just asked, have you got any answers?
Okay.
And I just looked around me and was like, no, not a single one.
The listening task, I hated it. It's not because it's not the thing that I hated the language. It's just I hated the formula of the listening tasks.
Yeah, they often like sound so unnatural and just like so very formal. And you obviously wouldn't heard any of those conversations like while walking down the street in a foreign country.
Yeah, because this is like the perfect, like the grammatically correct language. There is no slang in there, and usually it focuses just on one accent. The expectations of your teachers were quite low. They actually knew what to expect. As they say, low expectations, no surprises, yeah? Or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, with the sound of Spanish and the Spanish speakers, I do agree with you. Sometimes when I listen to something, I'm like, oh no, that's too fast. But my Spanish students, when they talk with each other, I'm like, okay, I'm getting it. I'm just, sometimes, of course, sometimes the context helps because I don't know all of the words, but I can catch the basic phrases, expressions. And I believe, okay, when they speak with each other, they don't care about how fast they do it. But I believe if I went to Spain and wanted to use my skills, I would probably end up as you with ordering the cuppa in France. But these are the beginnings, yeah? It's like that. And intonation, this is cool about Spanish, because you don't have to care about any of the auxiliary verbs. It's like in Polish, when you form a question, you just use intonation.
Okay.
That's why they have this a question mark upside down at the beginning of the sentence. Yeah,
I always wondered what was that about.
It just forms a question. And that's Mystery solved.
It's so handy. Like,
Yeah.
can we introduce it in all the European languages?
Yeah.
I mean,
The same with the exclamation. If you want to put the exclamation mark, you must put it in both places. This is very handy. And the same with the negatives. So you just use no. And you put no in front of everything. And here you are.
gosh, it's like so easy compared to like French where you have to like use n'est pas and in many different variations, and you have to always think, okay, where does the pas go? Yeah, it's
so you
hard.
put it in
Yeah, you put ne, I think, before the verb, and then pas usually goes after the verb. But there are some exceptions to that rule.
and think about English.
Yeah, also.
Like there is not, yeah, and not can fix everything, but it needs company, yeah. So with the auxiliary verb, the thing that I find very unique about Spanish, 2 different be verbs. Have you heard about it?
Now I remember something from the podcast. Like, there's like 2 be verbs, and one was for like...
Permanent state.
Yeah,
and
the permanent
yeah.
state, and the changing one.
Yeah, the temporary states. And when I try to compare it, for example, with English, I am boring and I am bored. A different adjective there, yeah? But also, you can play with the be verb in English, saying, for example, I am annoying, I am being annoying. Yeah, so now this I am being is right now. It's a temporary state. Maybe not even at this moment, but it's just temporary. And this is something like the closest that I found in the languages that I have some, let's say, knowledge of. But in Spanish, they are totally different. There is the verb ser and estar. Of course, every person has a different form. So ser is for the permanent states, and estar is for the temporary states. When I ask you "cómo estás," it's like "how are you?" So I'm asking you right now, yeah, your state right now. But using the same adjective with a different verb can change the meaning. So boring is like when you say aburrido or aburrida is the same as with I am, let's say, bored and boring. The other pair is católico. And if you use it with the estar verb, so with the temporary one, it means healthy. If you say católico, permanent, it means that you are like a Catholic person in this religious term. And what is illogical here, if you are dead, you use estar. You don't use ser. From my point of view, I mean, if you're dead, you're dead. And I thought, okay, maybe they're so religious, they feel it's just temporary. You will be resurrected and so on. But it's just the grammar rule that you have to use, because this is like participle from the verb mortar, I guess, which means to die. And the rule is that you have to use the estar verb. So grammar is like above everything, even above the death.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and the last pair that I put here is negro. So negro is black, the color black. So if something, like when you say ser, so the permanent, it just means the color, yeah? Like, for example, our clothes today. But with the temporary ones, it means you are either annoyed or suntanned because you were sunbathing. That's where I found unique.
Yeah.
I think it's unique because not many languages have 2 verbs be. So, Mikołaj, there is no escape. If you say A, yeah, as they say.
You have to say B,
Yeah. So, German. Why is it so hated? Why you personally don't like it?
For me, I think it's just the fact that I was like obviously forced to learn it, because in primary schools you had no other choice. But in high school you could either like choose German or French, so I obviously went with French. I don't know why I hate it. I think it's just it's like just kind of difficult for me to learn, because first thing that I find difficult is like the length of so many words. Like, you could have one word that will take up like the entire line in your notebook, and it will be just like a single word, and I find it so Like,
I always had this idea, like the feeling that when I start reading it, I cannot remember. When you're at the end, you can't remember what was at the beginning. And how can you do it? Just breathing, stay in it and breathing. You cannot do these two things at the same time. But you know what is weird? I had German in high school, and I was like, my attitude was like, no way, I'm not gonna learn it. It's just, it's awful.
Here.
Yeah, and I think I had given up before I even started. So it was like just, okay, I must survive the 3 years there. But the word that stuck in my mind, and I just look at it, and it's stuck like that, immediately. And I still can remember it, is Sehenswürdigkeiten. And it means sightseeing. It is maybe not the longest words in German. And why this one? It just stuck in my mind, and I probably remember it till the end of my life, Sehenswürdigkeiten. This is what I remember from German classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the outrageously long words, I do agree with you. Why people? German people, tell us why, yeah?
Yeah, obviously.
Have you looked it up? Like, have you tried to find some of the examples?
No, too much trauma. Yeah, definitely.
That was a smart choice, like a smart move, because I did. I mean, I searched for some, and I was like, what the hell? Like, how it is possible? And it's like, of course, they are more formal. I think even German people might just laugh at it. But there are even words consisting of 80 letters. How can you pronounce it?
Okay, that's not even like a word for one line. That's like a word for 3 lines at least in a notebook.
Oh, imagine writing tasks in German.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine writing an essay in German.
Like when you write an essay in German, you probably have at least 10 pages?
10 pages, 10 pages essay. Oh my god, and the teacher who must check it.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I would never, I would pay somebody to check it, And this sound, what do you think about this sound of German?
Yeah, that's another thing I want to discuss. Like, the overtone of the language is just, I don't know why, it's just so aggressive. I mean, even if the Germans speak about something really calm, it just, because of the way they pronounce things, it just sounds aggressive. And I think that is one of the main things that throws people off from the idea of learning German, because they're like, oh, it doesn't sound so good.
I'm in this group of people, and in primary school, so you are kids, you should have fun during the classes, and everything sounds like an order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like you're being ordered by the teacher to, I don't know, do some horrific things.
There is something about the sound, and I'm still wondering, if you pick to study the German language, it's like let's say this is your career path. Why? What can you like about this? Because there are people passionate about German.
Yeah, I honestly have one friend in my high school that is in love with the German language.
How can you be in love with German?
Honestly, every week, at least one time a week, I ask him, why are you doing this? Why are you just torturing yourself? And he was like, I don't know, I just like it.
That's a great expression. Why are you torturing yourself? But pronunciation is not that hard. Let's just stay objective. Yeah, pronunciation is not that hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty easy, to be honest. From what I remember, there are few rules that help you with the pronunciation, so it has some logic to it, and that's a good start.
Yeah, and German in general it's I think a very logical language. One of my students is a German teacher, and she loves German. She very often repeats that German sticks to the rules. Everything must be in the order, and everything is clear. So I don't know, maybe.
Maybe someday.
Oh my gosh, I would have to be really bored to death, I think, to start doing it. Or
you would have to be left with nothing else to do to start learning German.
Yeah, I'm wondering, what would I do first? Like coming back to the Arabic language, or which traumatized me a lot as well, you will see. But there are silver linings as well. Anyway, coming back to Arabic or refreshing it or starting in German. I don't know. I mean, there are more pleasures in the world, yeah?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Do you have any other notes on German?
No, not really.
But I have. So I would tell you, and then the conclusion I drew. So they have 4 cases. Okay, 4 cases. Not that bad. They have 3 genders. Okay, logical. A lot of languages have it. They have inflection, which is also very common. And there are not so many crazy tenses as, for example, in English. I can't remember. I think, there is like, similarly, I think in Polish, like you have the present, future, past aspect. I don't know. I don't want to sound clever because I'm not. But anyway, not so. I have the note that there are not so many crazy tenses. And of course, okay, they have these outrageously long words. Like different languages have different weird things. So the conclusion that I have, objectively, it is not so hard. The German language is not that crazy. It's not that hard. And I'm wondering if it's the history background that makes it. The Second World War that makes us feel the way we feel about the language. But then I think how many years have passed from that time, and the younger generations that learn, they don't know it, they don't remember, they didn't experience it. Our generations didn't experience it. We just know it from
history classes and like being told by the older generation.
So why? The question is still unanswered, it's not answered. Why we hate it? Because objectively it's not that hard. Yeah. You may have the feeling that we don't like, both of us, like don't like German, but there are people who enjoy it, and your friends, like torturing himself, but still enjoys it, So maybe we will leave you with this question, and we will finish the first part of the podcast about languages and their peculiarities and unique features.
And that was the first part, and in the second part we'll discuss the Arabic language, the Hungarian, the Japanese, and Swedish, and also our native language, Polish. So,
so more exotic ones. So it was a pleasure to talk to you and talk with you, Mikołaj. So it was Kasia Muszyńska speaking to you, and
Mikołaj Adamczyk.
Talk to you later in the second part. So it's still easier than when you compare it, for example, with, but if you're a user of English, this is when I'm speaking too fast. This is what happens when you speak too fast.